Hello, everyone, and welcome to another weekly update of Space Corp, a space themed RPG that I'm coding in Unity. Last week, we implemented the ability to farm potatoes, and for this week, I decided to switch gears a little bit and work on some other features. And I'm pretty happy with how they turned out, and I'm going to show you guys them here. For the first feature I worked on this week, I just decided to throw in some health indicator bars up in the top corner here. So I have one for player health and one for their oxygen level. Right now I have the oxygen draining over time, and it drains a little faster when the player walks around and they're doing game actions. But right now there's no way for the health to be lowered yet. One thing I did this week was I decided to change all of the art assets to conform to a color palette. I've been doing a bit of research on pixel art, and it seems like this is one of the common suggestions is to try to stick with a palette. So I wanted to keep this like purpley look for the world. So I chose this color palette on low spec that has like quite a bit of like purples and pinks that I can work with. It's called Pair 36. And I really liked how this kind of made my game art look more cohesive. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about that change in the comments, but I definitely think it's an improvement. There's still definitely some work to be done on the ground tile set, but I'm going to save that for another video. I think it's just a bit too like repetitive, and I'm not really sure I like the contrast between this blue and the purple. So this is probably going to change. Another thing that I worked on this week was I wanted to get the ability for the player to hold different items in their right hand. So I kind of broke up the player animation into different body parts in Sprite just by kind of separating them onto different layers. And then when I export the sprite sheet, I combine all those different sprite sheets in one like walk right animation. And to couple with that, I also added a position and a rotation for the right hand. If I just equip an item, it actually just shows up in my hand. It's behind the right hand, but in front of the player's body. If I walk with the player now, the the item that's held in hand kind of follows along with the rotation of the right hand. And if I'm walking left, it shows behind the body, but in front of the right hand, which is pretty cool. It doesn't look so great on the down direction. I think I'm gonna fix that later on. It looks okay walking upwards, but yeah, still a little bit of work to be done on this down direction here. But the cool thing is, it's very easy to just kind of put another item in this slot, and it works like out of the box. Um, it just rotates along with the hand as the player's walking, which is pretty cool. The next thing I decided to work on this week was I wanted to have some meteorites crashing down around the base that the player can mine for resources. The idea is I want to have these falling like periodically, not too often, but they're going to contain like different resources, and sometimes there'll be like really rare ones that drop at that the player can go mine for really good stuff. So I created like this sprite for the meteorite when it's on the ground level. Then I also created one for when it's descending. And I made a little animation here, and I'm really happy with this how this turned out. So how I implemented this was inside the game. I have this little meteor manager script, and it's interfacing with this time agent. So on a minutely frequency, it has a 0.01% chance to spawn a meteor. So if I play, we might be able to see the occasional one here. I'll zoom out into scene mode so it's easier to see. Might get one spawning. I'll try increasing this just to get one in. So yeah, these come down and they crash into the planet. Let's see if we can catch one here. And I've got like a little like particle effect when it lands. So there's an explosion and some pebbles that spew up. This is my first like attempt at particle effects in Unity, and I think it turned out pretty good. I'm happy with the result. I haven't actually yet implemented the mining part of it. That should come in next week's update. One thing I noticed when I implemented these meteorites is the same thing with crops and tilled soil. When I was leaving the scene and then coming back, they wouldn't persist. So I had a solution for that for crops and tilled soil. But instead of just kind of doing the same code pattern for meteorites, I decided to kind of genericize the solution a bit more so it's easier to have persistent data that sticks between scenes. What I ended up with was this kind of like global grid index that spans across all the scenes in the game. And any information that's tied to a specific grid position on a specific scene is persistent in this singleton class called persist data. And this really was built in a way to allow me to extend this to more objects as I add them that need to stay persistent between scenes. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. And I think it's a more robust solution than what I had in before. It's going to allow me to add new persistencies pretty quickly when they come up. So yeah, pretty happy with this coding change. What this will do is every time I enter a scene, it scans that global grid index for any objects that should be instantiated, and they all spawn back in their same position, and they retain any data that they had associated with them before the scene was loaded and unloaded. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'm having a lot of fun with this project, and I hope you'll stick around with me as I build this game out more. See you next week.